The Nile flows, silent, ancient, eternal. For millennia, its waters nourished a civilization of gods and kings, of pyramids and prayers. But within this ancient land lies a question that defies both history and faith. Was Moses, the liberator of Hebrews, an Egyptian? This daring question lies at the heart of one of the most provocative works of the 20th century, Sigmund Freud's book titled Moses and Monotheism. Introduction: Freud and the birth of a controversy. In 1939, near the end of his life, Sigmund Freud, the founder of psychoanalysis, published his final book, Moses and Monotheism. Written in exile after fleeing Nazi-occupied Austria, the book was not merely a study of religion, it was Freud's attempt to understand the origins of faith itself. He proposed a theory that shocked both theologians and historians, that Moses, the great Hebrew prophet, was in fact an Egyptian nobleman, a follower of Pharaoh Akhenaten's revolutionary monotheism. Freud wrote, if Moses was an Egyptian, and if he transmitted his own religion to the Jews, then it was the Egyptian religion he gave them, the religion of Aten. Moses in the Old and the New Testaments. To understand Freud's claim, we must first revisit the biblical Moses. In the book of Exodus, Moses is born during Israel's enslavement in Egypt. Saved from Pharaoh's decree, he is placed in a basket on the Nile and found by Pharaoh's daughter, who raises him as her own. Thus, from birth, Moses is both Hebrew by blood and Egyptian by upbringing, a dual identity central to Freud's later theory. As the story unfolds, Moses flees Egypt after killing an overseer, encounters God in the burning bush, and leads his people to freedom through the parted Red Sea. He ascends Mount Sinai, where he receives the Ten Commandments, the moral and spiritual foundation of Judaism, later influencing Christianity and Islam. In the New Testament, Moses is revered as the lawgiver, whose mission prefigures Christ's. In the Gospel of Matthew, Moses even appears alongside Elijah at the Transfiguration, symbolizing the continuity of divine revelation. But beyond the sacred text, Egyptian history remains silent. No Egyptian text mentions him, no monument bears his name. Could Freud's theory fill this silence? Egypt and the search for Moses. Archaeologists have long sought evidence of the Exodus, yet no direct inscription or papyrus has been discovered to confirm it. Egyptian records from the New Kingdom are silent about a mass departure of slaves. However, fragments of Egyptian history, such as the reign of Akhenaten, reveal an age of profound religious transformation. Around 1350 BCE, Pharaoh Akhenaten abolished Egypt's traditional pantheon and proclaimed the worship of a single god, Aten, the solar disk. His theology rejected the many gods of Egypt and focused on one universal creator. After Akhenaten's death, his religion was violently suppressed and Egypt returned to its traditional deities. But Freud believes that Akhenaten's vision did not die. It survived in the teachings of Moses. Freud's theory, Moses as an Egyptian. Freud's central hypothesis was bold. Moses was not a Jew, but an Egyptian, probably a nobleman, perhaps even a priest who adhered to the monotheistic religion of the Pharaoh Akhenaten. According to Freud, This Egyptian Moses kept the faith of Aten alive. He shared it with Assyrian people enslaved in Egypt, leading them to freedom and imparting to them a belief in one invisible God, a God of truth, morality, and law. But Freud's argument did not stop here. He proposed that Moses was later murdered by his followers, and that this hidden act of violence created a profound sense of collective guilt buried deep within the Jewish psyche. This guilt, Freud claimed, resurfaced centuries later as renewed devotion to a single moral God. Freud wrote, "The religion of Moses was forgotten, but it left behind a memory trace, a feeling of guilt which persisted and was revived when the people were ripe for it." To Freud, monotheism was not only a revelation, it was the return of repressed memory, a trauma sanctified over generations. Freud's sources and reasoning. Freud relied not on archaeology, but on historical parallels and psychoanalytic reasoning. He observed parallels between Egyptian hymns and Hebrew prayers, both celebrating a single creator of life and light. He compared the biblical story of Moses' birth with Egyptian motifs, such as the legend of Sargon of Akkad, where a child is set afloat in a basket and rescued by royalty. To Freud, such parallels suggested that the story of Moses' infancy was mythic, a way to reconcile his Egyptian identity with Israelite heritage. Freud wrote, "The legend contradicts itself. The hero is made both noble and humble. The contradiction resolves if we suppose the hero was of noble birth, but made humble to win acceptance among his people." Freud's Moses was thus Egyptian by blood, Hebrew by destiny, and the bearer of a universal idea, the one God. Scholarly reception and criticism. Freud's theory was met with outrage and disbelief. Jewish scholars rejected it as an affront to faith. Egyptologists dismissed it as speculative. Archaeologist Flinders Petrie and others noted the absence of evidence linking Moses directly to the Amarna period. Theologians argued that Freud's psychoanalytic approach, while imaginative, lacked empirical grounding. Yet Freud's idea endured. Later scholars, like Egyptologist John Assmann, saw in Freud's theory a profound insight into the transmission of memory and faith. Assmann wrote, "Freud, in his heretical thesis, opened a path toward understanding transmission of religious memory and trauma. Freud's genius lay not in proving the theory, but in revealing how civilizations remember and transform their own past." Legacy. Moses between Egypt and Israel. Whether Egyptian or Hebrew, the figure of Moses remains a bridge between history and myth, psychology and faith, Egypt and Israel. Freud's theory endures not because it solves the riddle of Moses, but because it reframes it. It asks us to see monotheism not merely as divine revelation, but as a human inheritance born from memory, identity, and the quest for unity amidst chaos. We may be unable to prove our reconstruction, Freud admitted, but if it helps to explain the facts and throws light upon the enigmas of history, it deserves consideration. The Egyptian Moses may forever remain uncertain, but Freud's vision reminds us that beneath every sacred story lies another, one shaped by the mind, memory, and mystery of humankind. From the sun god Aten to the tablets of Sinai, from Akhenaten's heresy to Moses' law, the search continues for the origins of one God, and the civilizations that carried his name.